Something happened in this exchange that most people will miss if they're only listening for headlines. Because this wasn't just a congressman asking about stablecoins or fraud or AI. It was a warning about how quickly America can lose control of its own financial future without a single vote, without a single announcement, and without anyone admitting it out loud. And when the questions got uncomfortably specific, when we finally reached the part that would expose who's really accountable, watch what happened. The clock didn't just run out, the system did.
Thank you, Chairman. And first, Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here, and thank you for your leadership in helping get the Working Families Tax Cut bill across the finish line. And in particular, thank you for negotiating over the issue of SALT, the state and local tax deduction. That was a big win for the American people. A core goal of U.S. stablecoin policy is to keep dollar-denominated stablecoins issued, regulated, and supervised here in the United States rather than offshore. Today, a substantial and growing share of the dollar stablecoin market operates outside the U.S., as foreign jurisdictions move quickly to establish legal regimes that encourage dollar stablecoin issuance in their markets. Foreign-issued stablecoins already compete globally by offering consumers economic value and incentives to use and hold them, and countries like China are actively using economic incentives to drive adoption of their digital currencies. As Treasury implements stablecoin legislation, do you agree that U.S. rules should preserve enough flexibility for American issuers to remain competitive so dollar activity stays onshore, transparent, and under U.S. oversight?
Congressman, and again, I think as you know, I used to have a house in your district.
Yes.
Given the tax regime in New York, I'm not sorry that I'm no longer there. I hope it will come back. It's a beautiful part of the world. With stablecoins, I would say what we want is U.S. best practices. The stablecoins can go around the world, and indeed we are seeing I believe we will see the adoption, especially in emerging economies, or maybe any other individuals who want to hold the U.S. dollar. But I think it is paramount, as was done with the Genius Act, to put in U.S. best practices.
Agree. Different topic. Fraud scams by bad actors are estimated to affect 15% of American homes, representing about 20 million American households in total. And given that losses to these scams often amount to $575, consumers face meaningful financial harm even from a single incident. At the same time, 37% of all U.S. households cannot cover an emergency expense of over $400 with cash or savings. And a fraud loss can be devastating to the average American. These losses can lead to missed debt payments and damage to credit scores, which in some cases prevent home ownership. We've seen a renewed focus on fraud by this administration with the announcement of things like the Scam Center Strike Force, and I'd like to strongly encourage the administration to adopt an all-of-government approach to combating fraud and scams. Secretary Bessent, what role do you think Treasury should play in fighting scams and fraud, and does the FSOC committee have any initiatives planned for the coming year?
Yes, so Treasury, through FinCEN, was part of the group who took down the big scam centers in Asia. We were very focused on places like Laos, like Burma, like North Korea, and even Iran. And the other side of that, Congressman, is that it's used for nefarious. Once the money's stolen, not only has a U.S. citizen been hurt, but it's used for nefarious purposes. So we are constantly monitoring that, and we are working with our partners because, as you said, AI can be both a benefit, it can be both a blessing and a curse. So we think properly managed and rolling it out using private sector partners, we can cut down on that shocking number. I was not aware 15% of Americans are subject to it, but we've also got to be very careful because it will make malign actors more able to pull off bigger scams.
Yeah. Well, and kind of continuing on that front, there's been a growing concentration of cloud and AI model providers and the risk that results if a small number of firms control critical financial sector infrastructure. How is FSOC assessing the financial stability implications of this concentration, particularly in scenarios of an outage, cyber incident, or foreign-based remote access vulnerability. And I had introduced legislation that we passed recently through committee. The Remote Access Security Act ended up passing the House with strong bipartisan support. What steps is FSOC taking to ensure that financial institution reliance on third-party AI and cloud providers does not expose the system to remote access risks?
You'll need to answer that question in writing, Mr. Secretary. The gentleman's time has expired.
Did you catch the pattern? Because it's right there in plain sight. First, the dollar. Lawler isn't asking a cute, nerdy crypto question. He's asking a national power question. If dollar stablecoins, if dollar activity moves offshore, what moves with it? Oversight, transparency, enforcement, and eventually, control. And notice what the Secretary does. He doesn't say, yes, we'll keep American issuers competitive. He doesn't say, yes, we'll make sure innovation stays here. He says best practices, over and over. That sounds safe. It sounds responsible. But let's confront the reality. Best practices can be code for more gatekeepers, more compliance layers, more permission slips, more reasons why the next American competitor never gets off the runway, while the offshore version takes off without us. This isn't just about crypto. This is about whether we keep the dollar's future on our soil, under our rules in the open, or whether we let it drift into global gray zones where American families pay the price later. And what happens next shows you why. Because then Lawler pivots hard to fraud. Not Wall Street fraud, kitchen table fraud, the kind that hits a retiree, a single mom, a family already one emergency away from disaster. And the Secretary gives a serious answer. FinCEN, international scam centers, bad actors, even hostile regimes. That matters because it confirms something Americans have felt for years. These aren't little scams. They're industries, they're networks, and they're feeding bigger threats. If we know the problem is global, and we know the money flows through systems, and we know AI is making it worse, then why are regular Americans still getting wiped out every day? What wasn't said is the loudest part. Where is the aggressive, visible deterrence? Where is the fast coordination with banks and platforms before the money vanishes? Where is the clear plan that treats fraud like the financial emergency it is? And then, here comes the moment. Lawler asks the question that should make every American sit up straight. What happens when a tiny handful of cloud and AI giants become the backbone of the financial system? Think about that. If your money, your bank, your payments, your credit scoring, your identity verification, if it all depends on a few vendors, what's the single point of failure? An outage, a cyber attack, a foreign remote access vulnerability, a compromised update, one bad day, and suddenly it's not tech news, it's national stability. And what does the Secretary do? He doesn't answer. Not because he can't, because the answer is politically expensive. You'll need to answer that in writing. That is Washington's favorite move. Delay it, bury it, de-risk it. Turn a 5-alarm question into a PDF no one reads. But here's the deeper problem this reveals. When the questions touch the real power centers, the choke points, the dependencies, the places where policy meets corporate consolidation, the conversation stops. This isn't just oversight theater. It's a test of whether government will protect the public interest or protect the comfort of the system. So here's the bottom line. Keeping dollar innovation in America, crushing fraud networks, and preventing AI/cloud concentration from becoming a systemic trap. Those are not partisan goals. They're American survival goals. If you want accountability, don't let these questions die in writing. Share this. Comment with the one question you'd ask next. If you had 5 minutes and they couldn't dodge it. And if you're tired of watching the clock save powerful people from hard answers, stay with us. Because what happens next shows you why.